Hello, my name is Dennis Semeka, Senior Editor for Technology at Industry Week. And Robert Schoenberger, our Editor-in-Chief, has allowed me to hijack Production Pulse again to talk about something I'm interested in. And in this case, we're talking about the definition of agentic AI. So when AI really broke into the mainstream a couple of years ago, it was generative AI, Chat, GPT, and the rest. That's really what everybody was talking about, and those are the sorts of tools that people were beginning to adopt and deploy. Agentic AI, from my perspective, really entered into the discourse strongly last year, and it's a different technology. And so we have invited three guests today to help us define what agentic AI is and how it's different from the AI we may already have been using. And I would like to open up the floor to introduce yourselves. How about we go Ron, Naga, Sanjay? That
Sure.
order.
Hey, I'm Ron Norris. I'm a former Director of Innovation at Georgia Pacific, which is a pulp and paper company based in Atlanta, but all around the country. Since I retired from there, I am the CEO of Advanced Innovation Management, and that's pretty much me. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Naga?
Hello, everyone. I'm Nagadithya Nookala. I go by Naga. I work as a product manager at Ford for data analytics and AI-related products. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Sanjay?
Hi, my name is Sanjay Ahire. I'm a doctorate. I teach at Henry Ford College, and as well, I am a full-time data scientist at Ford Motor Company. Over 30 years of experience in various fields of automotive, aerospace, FMCG, and so on and so forth. Glad to be here.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I super appreciate it. I'm excited about this one. I love talking about AI. So, full disclosure, everyone, we had a prelim call the other day and came up with two really good examples, I think, of how to differentiate between an AI agent and agentic AI. So, Sanjay, you had actually suggested the metaphor of GPS. Could you break that down for us?
Yeah, so just to lay the ground, right? So I would say the difference primarily between the agent and the agentic AI would be like a agent is a helper tool. So that does one specific thing when you ask something like a GPS I talked about, right? So GPS will tell you the best route, and like a Google search gives you links, and then like a bot sends an alert when something goes wrong. So I would say like it helps, but you still do the deciding and acting as for the agent. Versus like agentic AI, it's a helper that can also take action and handle multiple steps on its own to reach a goal. So for example, a self-driving car, right? So it doesn't just show directions. It actually drives, slows down, changes lanes, avoids, say, dangers. It's like a research assistant doesn't just give links. So it kind of like reads through the stuff, it summarizes, it recommends, it drafts your next steps. So it does the thinking, the planning, and doing within the rules you set. So I would say the easiest way to remember is agent is kind of like giving you help, and agentic AI is gets the job done step by step.
Naga, you had also suggested the metaphor of a web search. I think we just touched upon that, but was there anything else from your example you wanted to throw out there to help us come up with that basic definition?
Yeah, certainly. So for instance, right, a traditional agent is just like something which it can talk, where an agentic AI is something which can act on your behalf. So it's more like a personal buddy, an assistant, a personal assistant to you. For instance, if you're looking for something on the web, so as a traditional intelligent search engine can just give you the options. However, the agentic AI would not only does the analysis, research, and everything for you, but also it can do the job for you. So you just need to tell the outcome and what job you want it to do, and it will act on your behalf and does the things for you. So if you have asked this meeting somewhere, schedule this meeting somewhere in a location where the weather is not good, so my if I take the help of my personal assistant, which is agentic AI, it could look into the weather and also look into your calendar, and it could come back and suggest you that, hey, maybe it may not be a good idea to meet outside because of the bad weather conditions. Probably it could be best time to meet would be certain time, suggesting us and act on our behalf and schedule it at a place where we can have this conversation in a much better way.
Now, Ron, you have a very specific criteria for the difference between an agent and an agentic AI. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. Well, I mean, I think that there's recently been a lot of different ways that the word agent has been framed. I know some people that are calling basically chatbots an agent, and they're not. But originally, the definition of an agent was that it has the ability to learn, it has the ability to predict, reason by itself, and decide what to do, and then explain to us why. And that was the big thing about being an agent. I think that's more of a definition now of a causal agent. We can get to that in a minute. But I like what Naga and Sanjay said, because if you think about when you drill down what they're talking about, an agent is a unit that can perform a task. And agentic AI is the way that the agents behave. It's kind of maybe in a nutshell, kind of what that is, and they can make decisions on their own with limited help. And then what I mean by limited help is that you mentioned Waze earlier. I think that when we first started using Waze, I didn't trust it. And so I had to learn to trust it. And then I learned that in most instances, I would take its recommendations, and then sometimes that I wouldn't. And so when I say limited human help, that's pretty much what it is that, we have to give it the authority to act on its own, and it's up to us to validate that. Does that make sense?
It does. Sanjay, you actually had said something about the learning aspect of agentic AI, how the learning aspect. Do you want to expound upon that? Kind of touches on what Ron was saying.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add what Ron just said. So the learning aspect, because learning can sound kind of scary in this operational environment, like if you go to the manufacturing or some kind of a really intense environment, it doesn't mean that the system is kind of like randomly changing itself. So typically in industrial settings, learning should be bounded, like measurable, and like auditable, right? I mean, somebody can come in and check it out. So I describe it in primarily like three loosely said like a safe layers. So I would say learning patterns, right? So it gets better at the detecting early signals. So there are like a drift or the anomalies or the precursors to the defects usually, right? So you have some kind of an alert, and it could be a sixth sense or something, but as a data scientist, I know that something is not working right. And then learning preferences and policies. So teams operate kind of like differently by and large. Manufacturing operates differently, quality operates differently. So some want like the fewer false alarms, some want earlier interventions. Agentic systems can learn from what we prefer. So still inside policy within the limits. And then the third one I would say is the learning outcomes through closed loop feedback. So it's like you're trying to tie down everything together. So this is like a big value. It takes an actions, measures what happened, and improves upon the playbook. So not guessing, but measuring. So the key point learning happens within the guardrails with logs so that somebody can go and check it out, and humans can review what it did. So why it didn't, what happened. So to Ron's point, right? I mean, why, like a lot of reasoning behind it. So I would say just learning doesn't mean uncontrolled autonomy per se, but it means like a closed loop improvements inside the guardrails with audit trails.
That's the most important thing, though, isn't it? I think that it is. Otherwise, you're making decisions based on the internet. And what you just said is that we can control what it actually goes and pulls back and uses as knowledge to make a decision. And when you're in a company, that's all important, right?
Yep.
Now, in the course of this conversation, a few times, not many, but we've talked about for agentic AI, you could call it an agent, but then you have the other agents, the lesser agents that aren't objective, and the terms get conflated. I think about it as agentic AI it's a layer that's drawing up from all the other individual agents, and then the interface or the the operative portion of the agentic AI that actually speaks to you is kind of like a managerial AI, or like a custodian or a conductor working with the other AIs. Is that a reasonable way to kind of look at the difference between the actual AI in an agentic system and the individual AIs that the agentic AI feeds off of? If that makes sense?
Right. So if you have, if I take your example, right? So the agentic AI is the overall manager where it have the underlying root agents performing individual tasks for you. So all these root agents are acting on your behalf to accomplish the ultimate outcome that you're expecting. So one agent is checking the weather and pulling the data from the weather side of things, and another one is trying to check on your calendar and your availability and other things. And there is another agent which is assigned with the task of checking the location, the perfect location, which suits based on your location and my location, what is the best place to meet, right, for the conversation. So all these things are working in tandem under one objective of setting up a meeting, good conversation among us, right? So the main objective is you have one agentic manager. Underneath that, you have root agents orchestrated with specific individual tasks working for one goal.
Does anyone else want to add on to that, or else I'm going to go to the next?
I think I can add a little bit. So one thing that helps being precise with the terms, and I try not calling everything as an agent. So I call GPS and search tools. So I call like narrow action units task agents, and I reserve agentic AI for the orchestrator. So the system that coordinates multiple tools and task agents to hit outcomes. So I would say like a tool, task agent, orchestrator. So that vocabulary kind of keeps the conversation clean.
Tasking, orchestrator. We're almost running on time, so I think I'm going to make this our last question. So let's say you're a manufacturer who a couple of years ago, generative AI popped in, you want to adopt those tools. So you bought either your on-prem or your cloud servers, you got the software, you have it. And now, a couple of years later, agentic AI is all the is all the fad, and you want to adopt that technology. By having prepared to use generative AI, does a manufacturer probably already have all the tools and resources they need to deploy agentic AI, or are they going to need something different?
I think that some agents, that's a good question, Dennis. I think some agents are being asked to make decisions, though, that really have an impact. It's impacting cost or quality, safety or performance. And in those cases, to me, it's not enough for a system to just complete the task. It needs to be able to explain why it's making a recommendation or a decision that it's making. And if you look at it in human terms, what would we think if we had an employee that came to us and said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And you ask them, well, why would we do that? And they go, well, I don't know. But because that's what I say. And so, but you have to have some kind of a decision rational. And what we found is causal AI does that. Causal AI understands cause and effect. And we were talking earlier about knowledge. And so causal AI works off of knowledge and data at the same time. So if you've invested previously, to answer your question, Dennis, if you've invested previously in data AI, which is we have to have that. It's ultimately important. You're not wasted, right? That fits perfectly as an input into a causal AI agentic system. And so what we've added now is knowledge, and the knowledge of our subject matter experts. And the reason why we want to add that knowledge is that, well, first of all, the subject matter experts, a lot of them are retiring, and so we're losing that knowledge. And so capturing it is a great thing for us to be able to do that now, and then keep it learning as it goes along. When we take that knowledge and we put it into the system, that's called knowledge teaching, so machine teaching. So that's called machine teaching, and it's different than machine learning because the system continues to learn, just like it has in the past with data. But when you make decisions that are based on knowledge and data, the system comes back to us and it says, look, here's what's going to happen. Here's the root cause of it. Here's a simulation that I ran or several simulations that I ran, and I'm going to give you the option to look at them all, or you can look at the one that I'm choosing. And here's my recommendation, and why this is the best recommendation based on our KPIs and all the knowledge of subject matter experts and data. So you're using those three things: knowledge, KPIs, and data to tell us why.
You're on mute, Dennis.
Thank you very much. I coughed earlier, put it on mute, forgot to turn it back on. So what we just described is markedly more complex than a simple agent kind of checking the weather, checking your schedule. So Naga, if somebody has taken on the hardware to run generative AI, sounds like you need a lot more compute to run agentic AI. So if you brought the tools you need for generative, do you have what you need for agentic, or you're probably going to have to beef up your compute?
Definitely whatever has been invested so far would be helpful and reused to an extent. The big tech companies are building these agent development kits which can be plugged in to your already existing systems and applications. So the traditional programming setup or the infrastructure setup or everything that you have still is going to help you out, and these are kind of going to work as an extended and added features which are being built in. So these companies can easily plug those things into their enterprise applications and keep running them.
That's important.
What do you think?
That's important because am I the oldest one here? Does anybody remember an IBM 386 computer? I bought one. And the person I bought it from told me that it was going to be upgradable when the new ones came out. And so when the IBM 486s came out, the 386s were junk. It was basically a boat anchor. So we had to continue to keep upgrading and keep buying. And I think some of the things people are investing in now are certainly going to be able to at least feed data to whatever that next system that's coming up.
Sanjay, what do you think? Is there a kind of good crossover between the two techs, or you're going to have to beef up to use agentic?
No, I think both of them have covered, Naga and Ron has covered most of the things, but I just say that AI, the agentic AI adds its ability to take action safely. So you need a stronger integration into operational systems like real-time event workflows, monitoring and evaluation. People call agent ops and explicit guardrails around what can be automated versus what requires approval. So the simple message is like Jenna helped us talk to the systems, and agentic AI kind of like requires we safely act through the system. So that's my take.
Guardrails.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Naga, Sanjay, Ron, thank you for joining us as well. This has been Production Pulse. My name is Dennis Semeka, Senior Editor for Technology at Industry Week. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time.